let me welcome all of you to this session on leadership. And I'm absolutely privileged and honored to be part of this faculty development program organized for esteemed faculty members from different institutions, organized by IBCS SOA University. And I know that this session has been going on for last few days, and then I am one of the guest speakers as part of this event. And today I'm going to talk about leadership in contemporary times. So that's the topic that we are going to discuss today. And we would like to make this session interactive. I just don't want this to be a session of monologue where I speak and all of you listen. Rather, I would be interested in delivering, facilitating a session where we interact with each other. So, can one of you confirm if you're able to see my screen and hear me and see me at the same time?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Okay. So, over the next 1 hour or so, I will take you through some of my learnings, experiences, ideas about leadership in contemporary times. And towards the end, we will have some time. We'll set aside some time for question and answer after I take you through my ideas and concepts, what I've learned over the years as a corporate leader. I think we will have a Q&A session where if you have any questions, I will try and answer them. So, leadership in contemporary times. Does leadership change over time? As times change, does leadership need to change? Or is it something which stands the test of time, which does not change, which is eternal? My question to all of you, and if you can use the chat window and respond to me, what is your belief? Does leadership also change over time? Or leadership as a value, as a concept, remains constant, it is eternal? Can you use the chat window and then respond to me? As I said, we will try to make this session as interactive as we can. And I request the student volunteer, I want you to let me know whether the participants can use a chat window and respond to me. The student volunteers, if you can help me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can the participants use the chat window and respond? So does leadership over the years, does it change or does it remain constant? That was my question.
It changes, sir.
Okay. I would like to hear some more responses. I think Rasmi Ranjan Panigrahi says it changes, it changes. Okay. All right. So this is great. I think a lot of you are saying leadership changes over time. Well, the reality is some of the concepts about leadership do not change at all. For example, a leader always had to set a vision, a goal 200 years ago, and a leader sets a vision or a goal even today. That doesn't change. A leader had to execute a strategy. In the good old days, centuries ago, leaders used to execute the strategy, and today a leader also has to do that. A leader had to lead people, and today also a leader has to lead people. So, some of the fundamentals do not change over time, but there are certain things that change. Let's talk about what and why. As I bring up this slide before you, this talks about the evolution of leadership over time. We'll talk about 19th century, 20th century, 21st century, and we'll discuss how leadership has evolved. In the 19th century, there was a great divide between the rich and the poor. Leaders were extremely powerful, and the leadership style in 19th century was command and control. It was all about having command because leaders had power and the followers did not have power. Leaders were leading and the followers were always being led because largely they were powerless and leaders were extremely powerful and authoritative. So the leadership style that worked at that point in time was command and control. Things changed in 20th century. We saw the thriving of industries. We saw economy thriving. We saw opportunities for business, trade, commerce, manufacturing, etc. But in 20th century, when manufacturing was standardized, largely the nature of work was standardized. It was in manufacturing setup, we had assembly lines. We had great deal of consistency in the way people used to work. There were assembly lines, there were workflows. Work was pretty much standard. Everybody was probably doing similar kind of activities in a manufacturing setup, in a trading setup, etc. The nature of the work was very similar, repetitive, predictable, and rule based, and sometimes monotonous. So, and the emphasis was on productivity and efficiency. The more you produce, the more vehicles that you produce, the more television sets that you produce, the more books that you print in the same format. The focus was on productivity and efficiency. That's why the leadership style at that point in time was carrot and stick. If you produce more, you get a reward because the work gets monotonous at some point in time. So, how do you keep the workforce motivated? You have to give them a carrot, a reward. If the productivity was low, if workers did not meet the minimum standards, there was a stick, there was punishment. So the leadership style that was used in the 20th century largely were carrot and stick. Then came 21st century. Things changed in 21st century. In 21st century, there was automation and digitization. Most of the work which were standardized, routine, rule-based, transactional, either in the manufacturing setup or in the services industry, began to get automated, digitized. So the normal work of the average worker was almost automated, digitized. So we stepped into an era of digitization, transformation, disruption, an era where knowledge is power. Let's remember the 19th century, leaders had power. It was a muscle power, it was a money power, it was the power of economy. But in 21st century, it was knowledge which started ruling the world. It was not about standard work. The standard work was automated. It's about going beyond the standard work, doing something out of the box, different. The job required creativity. Computation drove technology and digitization in a crazy way. And for survival, organizations and individuals had to be ahead of the curve. Creativity was a norm. Innovation was a norm. Knowledge was powerful. So at this point in time, it was not about carrot and stick. because knowledge workers' temperament is very different. They did not want carrot or stick, but they wanted connection and inspiration. In 21st century, the leadership style has shifted to connect and inspire. So that's what you see, the way leadership has evolved through centuries. In the 19th century, it was command and control. In 20th century, the shift was to carrot and stick. And in the 21st century, the shift was towards connect and inspire. Now, the next question is, when we talk about the changing times, when we talk about dynamics in the world, while the world has always changed, the pace of change at which things are happening today is phenomenal. Change always happened. Change happened in 19th century, change happened in 20th century, change is happening in 21st century. But the difference in the way change is happening today is the fact that change is happening at a phenomenal pace, unbelievably fast pace. If you look at this example, it took man 300 years to invent the wheel. The wheel, because the wheel was a revolution. That probably laid the foundation to discovery or invention of vehicles in the later decades or centuries. But mankind took 300 years to invent the wheel. Today, Apple launches a new iPhone almost every year. I don't know if every 6 months. A new mobile phone gets launched in the market by any company, maybe almost every week. A new phone that comes to the market. The pace at which change is happening today is phenomenal. And that creates the challenge for the leader. Now let's understand what are the changes that are happening today. What are the big trends that we see around us? These are some interesting trends that we get to see around us. Today there is higher frequency of black swan events. A swan is always white. A swan is not black. So a black swan indicates a rare, unprecedented event in history. But black swans, which are supposedly rare and unprecedented events, an example of a black swan event can be 9/11 terrorist attack in World Trade Center in the United States of America. That's a black swan event. That doesn't happen every day. that doesn't happen every year. That happens probably once in a century or even less frequently. But such events are now becoming more frequent. Events which are unprecedented, which cannot be predicted, are now happening more frequently. COVID-19 is another example. Brexit, the Ukraine war, the geopolitical changes. Back in India, the demonetization. Such events are now taking place more frequently than they used to take place. That is a big shift that we see. Innovation and creative destruction of industries and products. Because all of you are professors and most of you are professors from management institutions, you understand this very well. You understand this very well. In 1950s, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies, the Fortune 500 companies who were there in the list of top 500 in the 1955 or 56, almost 89% of those companies do not exist. 89% of these companies do not feature in that list anymore. And many of them have become extinct. Some of them have been acquired by others. Some of them have been merged with other companies. Majority of them don't exist at all. And of course, 89% of them don't feature in the 500 list anymore. So what happens in a span of 40, 50 years? Almost 90% of companies who are in the top 500 are not in the list anymore. That's because of innovation. That's because of competition. That is because of creative destruction of industries and products. When the Ola and Ubers came in, all our local taxi agencies, they stopped operating. A particular industry got destroyed, dismantled. And there are many such predictions for the future. Today we don't see a postcard. It has been destroyed. Telegram is gone. A typewriter is gone. There are creative destruction of industries and products which are happening every day. Sometimes we are unmindful of this. But leaders of the 21st century cannot be unmindful of this. Accelerated market evolution. Market is evolving, customer expectations are evolving, and all that is happening at an accelerated pace. Decreasing product life cycle. The design and development of a product probably took years in the past. Now they happen in months and weeks. Rise in globalization. Globalization is an interesting term, which is a combination of global and local. So there is rapid globalization that is happening. The world is a single city, is a small city. You can buy anything from anywhere on the globe sitting at home and it gets delivered at your home. You can pay money, you can transfer money, you can transact, you can communicate, you can engage, you can have meetings with people from all over the world. That's globalization. But at the same time, localization is also gaining prominence. COVID 19 taught us that supply chain can break down. The Ukraine Russia war tells us that you cannot depend on global markets all the time. You need to manufacture, you need to produce, you need to have self sufficiency and capability in your country, in your province. So, the new trend which is emerging is globalization, the blend of global and local. Moral capitalism is on the rise. Moral capitalism. While there is a capitalistic economy, at the same time, moral values are also emerging. We are talking about purpose economy. Now organizations are also talking about social purpose and value and meaning. Birth rate is decreasing. That means for leaders, that is the talent pool is decreasing. People available to join the workforce is decreasing. There is another interesting development that we are seeing around us. That is, a person's career is no longer linear. Career is not linear anymore. In the past, our parents, and for many of us, career was linear. Education, job, retirement. It was like this. It was linear. Today and in future, it is not going to be linear anymore. It might look like this. Education, stop, do a job for few years, stop, take a break, come back, continue with education for another few years, stop, go back to work, but part-time work, freelancing, stop, move into a full-time job, do it for 5 years, stop, take a vacation and go on a world tour for 2 years, come back, start working as a freelancer, retire, but don't stop working while retiring. You have retired, but you're also working part-time, freelancing, whichever ways you want to do that. So career is not linear anymore. It's probably lateral. It goes back and forth. And the leaders must understand the change in the new dynamics, change in our society where the way people approach their career is also changing. That would have implications on leadership. Now let's talk about when we're talking about this. When we're talking about the changes which are happening around us. Now, what is the impact on the work and the workforce? There are a few things which are going to happen. The first major shift or change at the workplace is the workplace is becoming a gig economy. The whole world is becoming a gig economy. And this is going to be the age of gig workers. Gig workers are not workers like you and me. They are different kind of workers. Gig workers are part-timers, contractors, freelancers, contingent workers, startup um, entrepreneurs, and so on. Gig workers possibly can be working for multiple employers at the same time. That's a major shift that's happening at the workplace. Distributed working. COVID 19 has enforced this. Today, people are working in a distributed manner. Yesterday, people worked in the same building, same campus, same office, same floor. Manager sitting at one corner, workforce sitting in front of him or her. Now, the workforce is distributed. The manager might be sitting at office or home, but the workforce are all over the place and all over the world. Some of them are possibly working from home every day. Some of them are working from office every day. Some of them are working from home twice a day, twice a week, and rest of the week they come to office. Some of them probably work from probably a shared workspace. Some people might be working from a coffee shop. Some people might be working from for some time while traveling in transit. Some people are always on travel and always working from there, from airports and aeroplanes and then hotels and so on. The workplace is going to be distributed. This is called hybrid workplace. Millennials are the workplace. Millennials are the people who were born after 1980. They're millennials. And their number is increasing at the workplace. 3 out of 4 workers at the workplace are millennials. So leaders will have to look at it very differently. Leaders in the contemporary times will have to look at leadership with the lens of millennials. Value of skills over qualification. You belong to professional educational institutions. You may not appreciate this very much. You might say that qualification always is important, which I agree. I do not deny that. But skills are getting valued by organization more than qualification. Today, organizations don't care if you don't have the qualification, but they're looking for skills, competencies. About world's top 10 or 12 organizations have already announced that they're no longer going to look at qualification as a criteria for selection. Google is one of them. These organizations say that there is no proven, there is no established fact, there is no evidence that qualification is linked with performance and productivity. So they're saying we will, in our selection process, we'll look at skills. It doesn't matter if the person is an MBA or an MSc or whatever, or he or she is an undergraduate or even a higher secondary pass. Doesn't matter. Google recruits many coders who are not BTech graduates. These coders are probably school dropouts or 12 pass or 10th pass, but they're extremely brilliant in coding, programming. Such companies have started hiring such people. value of skills over qualification is, gaining importance. Massive job loss owing to automation. That's what we are going to see at the workplace. Standard works are going to go away. Coexistence of men and machines at the workplace. At the workplace, we will find men and machines working together. Earlier, if there was a workflow in a process driven organization, if the process had 29 steps, or in an assembly line which had probably 10 different stages or steps, all of them were looked after and managed by men or women. Now, some of the workflows are managed by men and women, and some of them are managed by robots, machines. In the same workflow, some activities are managed by men and women, some activities are managed by workflow, by machines. For the new leader, for the leader of the 21st century, it is a challenge. You know how to manage men and women, but do you know how to manage machines? Men and women work 8 hours a day, 6 days or 5 days a week. Machines can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How do you manage the two different entities at the same time? Unemployment on one hand, unfilled jobs on the other. On one hand, you see massive unemployment, people are jobless. I see in Bangalore, where I'm based today, there are many graduates who come from different parts of the country who come here and they search for jobs. They don't find one, or they struggle to find one. At the same time, I see organizations are looking for talent, they're not finding talent. What an ambiguous situation. What a contradiction. But that's the reality of our life today. Now, what are the opportunities for leaders? Opportunities for leaders are many. They need to transform their organizations. That's a huge opportunity. Organizations need to become resilient. The leaders have to support. Organizations need to come up with new business models to survive. Organizations which featured in the Fortune 500 list did not survive in the Fortune 500 list because they could not come up with new business models. Organizations need to prepare for a new world, which is hybrid, which is dynamic, which is disruptive, where the customer expectations are evolving every day, where technology is ruling the world. Organizations need to prepare for the new world. Organizations need to prepare their workforce to innovate. Only leaders cannot innovate. Only leaders cannot transform. Their entire workforce will have to innovate. Think, create new ideas, think out of the box, think laterally to be able to bring in new ideas, new ways of serving customers, bringing in new products and services. Organizations need to prepare their workforce for distributed working. Workers need to switch to new occupations. As more and more and more jobs get automated and digitized, more and more and more workers are going to be rendered unemployed, jobless. Leaders will have to make sure that they're upskilled so that they can switch over to new job categories. Organizations need to upskill, reskill, and cross skill their workforce for the future. To be future ready, leaders cannot be focused only at present. Oftentimes, leaders say that our people have no time for upskilling because they have to do their job, produce certain quantity, meet productivity goals, efficiency goals, volume goals, turnaround time goals. Where is the time for them to stop working and get upskilled and cross-skilled and reskilled? The leaders of the 21st century will have to look at this very, very differently. Now let's talk about what are the skills that we need in the 21st century to become successful. I'm going to talk about 7 skills which are important for leaders in the 21st century. 7 skills. All the 7 are absolutely important. The first one is leading with purpose. Gone are the days where leadership was about profits only. Now it is about for profits, for people, and very importantly for a purpose. What is your leadership purpose? That is important. Bill Gates started Microsoft. He went on to become the richest man in the world. Did he start Microsoft to become the richest man in the world? He had no idea that he will become the richest man in the world by starting Microsoft. He had no idea. But he started Microsoft with a purpose. The purpose was to manufacture or make a software which the common man can use. What a purpose! What a noble purpose he had. He had a purpose for the world. He had a purpose to serve the society, the mankind. And businesses need to survive if they have a purpose. Business can survive if they have a purpose. If the purpose is about making money, accumulating wealth, if the purpose is about expanding the market leadership, your organizations will be like one of those 89% of those companies which fell out of the Fortune 500 list. Leadership has to be with a purpose. When Ratan Tata launched Nano, he had a purpose. He wanted every Indian to be able to drive a four-wheeler. When Captain Gopinath started Air Deccan airline, he had a purpose. He wanted Indians to be able to fly. Flying was beyond the reach of the common Indian. He launched an economy airline and he had a purpose. The purpose was that every Indian should be able to fly. As leaders, you must have a purpose. That is important. If you don't have a purpose, then it's time for you to step back, reflect on yourself, and find out what is your purpose. A Western philosopher said something very important. He said, what we take from this world gives us our livelihood. What we take from this world gives us our livelihood. What we give this world gives us our life. What we give this world gives us our life. Imagine, what do you want? Life or livelihood? If you're craving, the inner being is craving for life, but all that we do is we are chasing livelihood. Livelihood is important. But if we have life, we'll have livelihood as well. Bill Gates did not start Microsoft to become the richest man in the world. He started Microsoft to serve the mankind. And he had a purpose. He became the richest man. So if you have a purpose, money, wealth, affluence will follow automatically. But as leaders, if you chase market leadership, revenues, of course, they're important. But if they become primary and a purpose is completely sorely missed, then you and your organization will fall by the wayside. So the most important quality of a leader for 21st century is leadership with a purpose. And there are enough examples when we talk about leaders like Bill Gates, Ratan Tata, and other leaders who have got exemplary examples of leadership with purpose. Next one is entrepreneurial mindset. Whether you are a manager or an owner of a company or a founder, always imagine that you are an entrepreneur. Whether you are a professor in a B school or a finance manager in an IT company or an HR manager in a manufacturing company, doesn't matter. You have to think that you are an entrepreneur. The entrepreneurial mindset is very important in today's world. Organizations today don't need managers, they need entrepreneurs. You might be thinking, well, how can I be an entrepreneur? I'm working, I'm a worker, I'm a manager, I'm being paid, I'm not self-employed. So how can I be an entrepreneur? Well, I'm talking about an entrepreneurial mindset. The department that you are managing or leading, imagine that department is a startup and you are the founder of that startup. I work for a multinational company and I'm the head of a function, a department. I run my function as a startup. I want to keep it lean. I want my department to create value for my stakeholders and internal and external customers. I want to produce the maximum value with the least amount of resources. Not just maximum value, also maximum quality. So, how can you keep your costs down? How can you maximize the value and impact and revenues, the dollars that you make, or even the value that you make, the customer satisfaction that you create, the quality of the product or the service that you deliver. So, entrepreneurial mindset, whether you are working or running a company, the mindset should be that of an entrepreneur. Speed and agility is another important skill required in the 21st century. Speed is of essence. It is not enough if you have a great idea. You need to implement that great idea with speed. That is important. Jack Ma says something very, very interesting. He says, don't try to be the best, try to be the first one. Try to be the first one to bring in a new idea. Don't focus on bringing the best idea. Your idea will evolve. You will develop your idea. Try to be the first one. Don't try to be the best one. Continue to strive to be better and better and better. But in the process of trying to be the best, if you lose out on being the first, there is somebody else will come with the same idea or a better idea or even a worse idea. But he or she will be able to propose this idea to the world and make it work. You, in spite of having a better idea, may not have an opportunity to implement it. So, speed and agility is important. I think I read this somewhere. It is not the big fish which swallow the small one. It is the faster one which swallows the slower one. So in the water body is not just the big fish which eats the smaller one. If the small one is agile, quick, the big one cannot do much. So it's a small fish which wins, not necessarily the small one. It is the swift one. It is the fastest fish that wins. So speed and agility is important. Sometimes you waste a lot of time trying to build a perfect product. But in the bargain, we lose out because we spend so much of time that the relevance gets lost or the idea has already evolved. So speed and agility is extremely important for leaders in 21st century. Maybe it was different in the past. Maybe in the past we had enough time to create the perfect product. Today we need to create a perfect product in no time. Speed and agility is important. In large organizations, bureaucratic organizations, sometimes speed and agility become difficult. So large organizations are all sometimes equated or compared with elephants. And elephants find it difficult to run quickly or move quickly because the body is so huge. But a mosquito moves very, very quickly. A mosquito can bite the elephant and run away, fly away. The large, gigantic elephant cannot do anything about it because it's not agile, it doesn't have speed, it takes a lot of time to move. Mosquito may not be as big as the elephant, it is small, but it is agile. So, in today's world, that's what we are seeing. Large organizations are struggling, small startups which are agile, lean, but quick and have got speed and swiftness are very, very successful. Like the mosquito troubling the elephant, the small startups are now troubling large organizations. Like there are companies in Japan and other parts of the world which have great ideas on 3D printing, and world's largest printer company HP is struggling to bring out innovative products. Some startup in some part of the world is bringing out exciting 3D printing ideas. But a large company is struggling to change, innovate. So speed and agility is extremely important for the leader of the 21st century. Digital leadership, I don't really have to talk about it. You know this. No matter what great leadership skills you have, this one is a must. Leader must understand and know technology because technology is ruling the world. And as a leader, you must leverage the power of technology. If you don't understand technology today, you may be a great orator, great speaker, you may have a great purpose, you may have speed, agility. But if you don't understand technology in today's world, as leaders, you are not going to succeed. So technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning, robotics, these are changing the world. Data analytics, these technologies are changing the world. As leaders, you must understand these technologies, must know how to leverage these technologies to bring about transformation in your organization, for your customers, for your people. So, knowing technology is another important attribute, a skill for the leaders of 21st century. The next one, the fifth attribute we want to discuss is learn, unlearn, relearn at speed. If you believe you are a great leader, you have learned everything, you passed out from the most prestigious B schools run by SOA University, you know everything, you are mistaken. I know it all attitude is detrimental to the leader of 21st century because knowledge is becoming fast obsolete. It is getting outdated. The knowledge you acquired in your university is not relevant probably today. The knowledge that you will need 10 years from now, that knowledge itself does not exist today. That knowledge will evolve over the next 5, 6, 7 years. So, a leader must be prepared to learn, unlearn, relearn at speed. That's an extremely important attribute in today's world. There was a young man who wanted to learn music. He said, I want to learn music. He found out who the best music teacher was in the country. He went to that music teacher and he told him, Teacher, I want to learn music. Will you accept me as your student? The teacher said, Of course, I will gladly accept you. The young man asked the teacher, How long will this take for me to learn music? The teacher said, It will take 6 years. The student was taken aback. He said, 6 years? That's too long, teacher. I already know some music. I think for me it will take much less time. I don't think it's going to take 6 years for me because I already know some music. The teacher asked him, okay, tell me what you know about music. Then I can tell you how much time you will need. The young man proudly explained to the teacher what he knows about music. Then, with a question mark on his face, looked at the teacher and expecting a response from the teacher. The teacher smiled and said, young man, it will take you 12 years to learn music. The young man was very angry and upset. He said, are you a real teacher or a fake teacher? I said, you told me 6 years. And I said, I know something about music. It should take less time. And I've already explained to you what I know. And he was saying, 12 years? What is this? The teacher said, young man, everything that you know about music is wrong. So you need 6 years to unlearn what you have learned wrongly. And you need another 6 years to learn music. 6 years to unlearn and 6 years to learn. So 12 years. That's what the mathematics is. An interesting story, but it talks about the need and relevance of unlearning, relearning. That's what we need to keep doing as leaders all our life. All our life. Because the world is changing. World is dynamic. New knowledge is evolving. The knowledge that we had yesterday is not relevant today. Some of them could be wrong as well. So unlearning, relearning are extremely important for leaders of 21st century. Dialectical thinking. What does it mean? Dialectical thinking is a powerful skill to have. Many of us are not good at it. We struggle with this. If you Google it, you will find some interesting answers. But in layman's language, dialectical thinking is the ability to hold two contradictory ideas together. It is the ability to have two contradictory viewpoints at the same time. Interesting. I'll give an example. You may have your own ideas about, let's say, for example, whether a particular people with a particular sexual orientation, like homosexuals, should they come and work at the workplace? You may have your own ideas about them. You may have your own values, own beliefs, own opinion. But as a leader, you have to be accommodative. You have to accommodate contradictory ideas and views. No matter what your personal belief is, you must make sure that you hold contradictory ideas. You allow contradictory ideas to coexist. May not be a very nice example, but I just wanted to, for the sake of understanding, wanted to say this example. For example, if I say a problem is a problem is a problem, that is an example of average thinking. But somebody who is good at dialectical thinking will say a problem is an opportunity. So problem and opportunity, two contradictory ideas. Generally, people will say problem is a problem. But a leader who is good at dialectical thinking will always look at a problem. Every problem that he or she encounters, he or she will look at it as an opportunity. What an advantage. I'll give another example of a dialectical thinking. Why do we need brakes in our car? We need brakes in our car to slow down, isn't it? That's the viewpoint. But if there is a contradictory viewpoint, brakes are required in the car to speed up. Let me ask you this question. We'll use the chat window for a moment. So, how many of you drive to office using a drive? How many of you drive to office? You drive your four-wheeler to your workplace. Use the chat window. Mr. Bimal says he drives to office. Anybody else? Does anyone else drive to office? Do you drive a four-wheeler, a two-wheeler, whatever, to office? Please respond. Okay, so I'm seeing some responses. Minakshi says she is driving to office. Bimal says he's driving to office. How much time does it take for you to reach office? You can type your response or unmute yourself and then talk to me. So Bimal says it takes 25 minutes. Drusti Sundar says 25 minutes. Minakshi says 25 minutes. So Minakshi, how do you drive? Do you drive a four-wheeler or a two-wheeler? Two-wheeler. Okay. And Bimal, do you drive a car? Four-wheeler? Scooter. Minakshi says scooter. Bimal is saying he drives a four-wheeler. So, and how much time? It takes about 25 minutes. And your car has brakes, isn't it? Yes. So, Bimal, if you remove brakes from your car, how much time will you take to reach office? Now you take 25 minutes. No brakes in your car. 50 minutes. Just now we said brakes are required in the car to slow down. Dhruti Sundar says maybe 1 hour. Just now we said brakes are required to slow down. But in reality, brakes are actually helping us speed up. If there are no brakes, it might take 1 hour. But if there are brakes, you might reach in 25 minutes. Right? So, this is example of dialectical thinking. A belief that contradictory ideas can coexist. A leader with dialectical thinking challenges the status quo. It challenges the status quo. It doesn't get terrified with threats, risks, with problems, etc. Because dialectical thinking helps the leader bring out, helps the leader also look at the other side of the problem, the other side of the challenge, the other side of the issue, and find possibilities, find opportunities. Like brakes can be a showstopper, brakes can stop you, but brakes can also help you speed up. If you have brakes, you can drive faster. If you don't have brakes, you will actually drive slowly, very, very carefully. So, how can we look at everything that breaks our life, brings that halt in our life, and how can we see opportunity in that? That is what dialectical thinking is all about. Always challenge the status quo. Always accommodate contradictory ideas. Globalization is an emergence of dialectical thinking, because you also see that there are possibilities in global and also in your local setup. You have opportunities. So dialectical thinking is very important to the leader in the 21st century, because you have contradictions always. The contradictions are between prophets and people. Contradiction is between health and economy. Contradiction is between whether you should go for economy or we should protect environment. You are caught between these contradictions. You are caught in this trap. So dialectical thinking will help you accommodate contradictory ideas and find ways and means to deal with contradictions. The last one is inspirational thinking. The last one is about inspiring people. Is about inspiring people. Well, we always needed to inspire people, isn't it? In 19th century, in 20th century, the modes were a little different. Command and control was prevalent in 18th century, 19th century. In 20th century, it shifted towards carrot and stick. And today, it's all about inspiring people, connecting and inspiring. I'm not saying inspiration was not required in the past. We have great examples of great leaders centuries ago who inspired their followers. Great emperors like Alexander, who could inspire thousands of soldiers to fight a battle for him. They were also inspiring. But today, inspiring is more important than ever before. In UP, in North India, there is a famous festival called Ram Leela. In the Ram Leela festival, they have, in some villages, they organize melas, big festivities. The fairs are organized there. One such mela was organized in a village in UP, and in that village there was a farmer. That farmer used to go to his agriculture field every day. He had to work hard in the field. Every evening when he used to come back, his son, a 4-year-old boy, used to tell him, Papa, Ram Leela is going on. Ram Leela festival is going on. Please take me there. The father used to find some excuse or other because he had to go to the field every day. And he used to come back very tired. He wanted to rest in the evening so that he can go back the next day morning to the field. This boy was so restless and so relentless in his plea to his father to take him to the Mela. One day the father gave up and father said, okay, chalo beta, today I'll take you to the Mela. The father and son started for the Mela in the evening. And there were so many activities going on in the Mela. There were swings, there were food stalls, there were competition, there were events, there were different shows going on. The father loved everything very much. After a few minutes, the son told his father, Papa, let's go back home. The father said, but why? You wanted to come here and I brought you here, and you want to go back. It's not even 5 minutes. You want to go back. The child started crying. He said, Papa, please take me back home. I don't like, I'm not enjoying. I want to go back home. The father came down on his knees, and he actually literally came down on his knees and looked into the eyes of the small boy and asked his son, Beta, what happened? Why do you want to go back? When he was meeting his eyes with his son's eyes, he could also see the legs of people, the legs of people. And he realized that his son is only seeing the legs of people and nothing else. While he himself is enjoying the Mela, the swings and the stalls and the shows which are going on, the poor kid is only able to see the legs of people, nothing else. The 4-year-old boy. The father lifted his son, put him on his shoulders, and started walking inside the Mela. The son started clapping. Papa, I don't want to go back. I'm enjoying the Mela. Small story but powerful. This story teaches us that we need to lift our people to the level where we are. We have to lift our people to the level where we are so that they can see the world the way we see. The father was able to see everything. The son was not able to. He lifted him to his level where he could see the world the way his father was seeing. But to be able to do that, first we'll have to go down to the level of our team members, our followers. The father had to come down on his knees to look into the eyes of his son, to know what his problems are, what his issues are, what his challenges are. First, you have to come down to the level of our people, then lift them up. That's what inspirational leadership is all about. But today, in today's corporate world, where do leaders have time? Where do leaders have time to come down to the level of their people, live alone lifting them up? That's the irony of our situation. But there's no shortcut. There's no way out. The only way the leaders will have to drive change and become effective in the 21st century is about inspiring people. Leadership is not just about skills, it's also about a set of tools, it's also about a mindset of empathy, fearlessness, a mindset of collaboration, a mindset of taking people, a mindset of understanding people, a mindset of lifting up people. That is important. I I would like to quote here a very famous spiritual guide. He says something like this. He says, great men are normally grateful. One who is successful in any active, enlightening affair may not necessarily be grateful. Great men are ever grateful for their inner, kind, compassionate temperament. And they're always the seed of greatness. Successful people are not necessarily great, but great men are always successful. Bow to such great men. What a powerful statement about leadership. This talks everything about leadership. Great men are normally grateful. Today, we don't find leaders who are grateful. We find leaders who are egoistic, who are self centered. But a great leader is grateful. A successful leader may not necessarily be grateful. That's why a successful leader may not necessarily be great. But a great leader is always successful. Bow to such great men. So, my dear esteemed participants today, as we begin the journey towards leadership, there are two paths leading in two different directions. One path is leading towards mediocrity, another is leading towards excellence. There is no third path, by the way. If we believe there could be a third one, there is none. That one road is leading towards mediocrity, another road is leading towards excellence. Choice is ours. Which one we want to take? We want to take the path to excellence, or we want to take the path to mediocrity. But if you want to take the path to excellence, then we must lead with purpose. We must develop an entrepreneurial mindset. We must develop speed and agility. We must understand technology. We must be prepared to unlearn and relearn all the time. We must be in a position to accommodate divergent thoughts and thinking. And we should be ready to come down to the levels of our people and lift them up, inspire them. So, path to excellence is an exciting path, but not an easy one. Path to mediocrity is an easy path, but not an exciting one. With this note, I would like to conclude this session and I'll open it up for questions. Any questions? This is precisely about 11. It's about 11:15. We can have another 10-15 minutes for question and answer. Any questions? Minaki says, there is no break, then life will break down. Very nice, interesting one. Bimal is saying, if no brakes, will drive slowly. Okay. Yes, Dr. Bimal.
My question is that you throw some light on I have some ambiguity there. Suppose, if you live with the two contradictory ideas, then the clarity will not be there. Always the ambiguity will be there inside the leader. So how he or she can overcome it? Because he
Okay.
may take a biased decision. Sometimes the emotions and feelings may take over the actual thing. So how to actually cope with that situation?
Okay. No, good question. Good question. So the genesis behind dialectical thinking is the need to acknowledge the fact that we all are different. And a leader has to, if the leader believes that I am right and what my followers, my other colleagues believe is wrong, then we are missing out on perspectives. And for example, when we say, let's say there are people from different parts of the globe who have joined into this call right now. Professor Bimal, can you are you getting my example? Let's say people from all
Yes,
over
sir.
the world have joined this session, and you ask Surya, tell what is it now? I say it is a day, but there is a co-participant who was logged in from America, and that person says, Professor Bimal, no, it is not day, it is night. Who is right?
Both.
Both are right, but both answers are not the same because of the context they come from. Their responses are different. Another example that I'll give you, in a school there were two friends, two girls were there. They were best of friends. But one day they had a big fight. The fight was about Titanic movie. One girl said, Titanic movie is a romantic movie. Other girl said, no, it is not a romantic movie, it is a tragic movie. Tell me who was right in this case? The first girl or the
It's
second?
a, it's a perception.
It is perception. So somebody believes it is tragic, somebody believes it is romantic. And the perception comes from what they've heard from their parents. Both the girls are too young, they have not watched the Titanic movie. The first girl has listened from her parents. Her parents keep discussing and say, oh, it's a beautiful romantic movie about love. Second girl at home, her parents discuss about the movie and they say it's a tragic movie, very unfortunate ending, very unfortunate, very sad. That's how the perceptions have developed. We can't say that first girl was right, second was wrong, or second was right or the first was wrong. Can we say that? We cannot say that. So, as leaders, we'll have to understand that we live in a divergent world. There are diverse perspectives, the multiple perspectives. Sometimes you have to choose one, and sometimes you have to allow both to coexist.
Thank you.
In my role as a leader, sometimes, I'm not talking about my current organization, but in my previous organization, I found when we introduced e learning for the first time, we found that some countries, I was in a global role, we found that some countries are adopting e learning. Some countries were dead against e learning. They wanted classroom training, face to face training. I'm a proponent of e learning, I'm an advocate of e learning. I went all out to drive it. It was a miserable failure in that country that I'm referring to. Employees protested. And finally, I realized that these two ideas must coexist in the same organization. I allowed that country to continue to have classroom training and not go for e learning. Allowed other countries to go for e learning. So sometimes we believe that an idea, if it's a great idea, it has to be implemented everywhere. But that may not be the reality because of the context in a different country, different location, different place, the great idea may not be relevant. As a leader, you must, if you have dialectical thinking, then you will allow contradictory ideas to coexist. Professor Bimal, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I see another question. If it is possible to good leader without having knowledge in that particular field? Yes and no. As a leader, you need not be an expert, Professor Minakshi. You don't have to be an expert in the field, but it is good to know that field to some extent, right? If I'm working in the IT industry, I mean, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a BTech or MTech. I'm not an engineering graduate, but I'm working in the L&D field in an IT company. So I may not be as proficient as a coder, but I should understand the domain. So while you may not need in-depth knowledge in that field, but it's good to have some understanding and overview of that field. That will be helpful. Because when the people talk that language, when people talk to the technology language, I should be able to relate to what they're saying. Otherwise, I'll be seeing stars, or it'll sound like Greek and Latin to me when they talk to me. But I don't have to be an expert to answer your question, Professor Minakshi. You don't have to be an expert in that field, but as long as you have good understanding, that's fine. Any other question? Thank you for your comments. I think some of you have given very kind words, mentioned very kind words about me and the session. Thank you very much for this opportunity. If any one of you want to reach out to me, stay in touch with me. Here is my, if you can see my screen, these are my credentials. You can reach out to me. You can send me an email on suryapm69@gmail.com. I can be reached. You can send me a friend connect request on LinkedIn. You can find me using my name, Surya Prakash Mohapatra. If you want to listen to some of my speeches in the past on different topics, including leadership, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Surya Mohapatra Official. I'll wait for a couple of minutes, just in case there are any other question before we wind up. All right. Looks like there is no other question, so we can go back. The student volunteers, if you want to take over. Thank you,
A
Nargis.
very grateful good morning to our most valued guests, both the teachers, and last but not the least, all gathered over here. On behalf of our university, I, Sushrika Pandey, extend a very heartfelt vote of thanks to our speaker, Mr. Surya Prakash Mahapatra, who highlighted on leadership in contemporary time. Thank you, sir, for making this session successful. Thank you, everyone who joined this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was great interacting with you, and look forward to interacting with you in the future. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So I'll take leave. Thank you very much once again. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.